The Town got off the mark for the Championship season with a 0-0 draw on a crazy afternoon at Portsmouth on Saturday afternoon. To reflect on the game and review it all alongside me, I've got the Lutonian journalist James Cunliffe. Jimbo, we're up and running.
Yeah, and everybody breathe. A sigh of relief.
Absolutely, yes. We will cover the game and plenty more around it straight after this intro.
For me, it's the people and the spirit of the people as well.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got this massive soul.
We're Luton people, and that's what we care about.
Hello everyone, welcome along to another episode of the Luton Town Supporters Trust podcast, the longest running Luton Town podcast, sponsored this season by Solid, providing opportunities, provisions and assistance so our academy can fulfil their potential. You are listening or watching the review episode for Portsmouth away, the second game of the season, obviously a 0-0 draw. And as I said prior to the intro, alongside me I've got the Lutonian journalist James Cunliffe. Jimbo. Goals was what we promised, and goals was anything but what we got.
Yeah, you also said it would never be a 0-0 in a month of Sundays, and I believed you at the time. But hey.
Last season, we didn't have a single red card in the league and a single 0-0 draw in the league, and within the space of 2 games in the Championship, we've ticked them both off.
Yeah, I mean, I would have taken that. I think, and everybody would after 30 minutes. But even before that, there was, green shoots of recovery and reasons to be cheerful. So I think on the whole, really, it was a really positive afternoon.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I have to say, I was sat there. Well, no, I wasn't. That's a lie in the first place. I was standing there. Well, it was kind of standing, a mixture of standing and sitting, because I was right behind the goal and you're trying to dodge the goalkeeper who was in front of you so that you could see. And then the post got in the way and you're like, oh, for crying out loud. A cracking stadium, though. I do love Fratton Park.
Yeah, it is good.
Changed so much in the 6 years since we last went there, actually. They've really sort of, the kind of Championship upgrades, I suppose, really do bring it, and the sunshine as well. It just sizzled. It was a great day, actually, because the away end was just rocking, even though we didn't score, and it was just kind of reminded you of real football after a load of sterile, soulless visits to grounds last season. If there is a positive of being back in the Championship, that was certainly it.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's one thing about the Premier League, and there are lots of good things about it, but those atmospheres just weren't there for many of the grounds. And the ones that were there, we highlighted last season, say your Anfields and your St James's Park and that stuff. But Fratton Park is always an intimidating place to go, and we pointed that out in the preview. And I think Luton did a really good job on that crowd, really.
Yeah, I do too. We said in the preview that the first 15 minutes of their opening game against Leeds United was like, everything but the kitchen sink was thrown at Portsmouth. And whilst we wasn't quite throwing the kitchen sink at them, we were playing some really lovely controlled football. And like Leeds, we should have been, or could have been, 2 or 3 up in the first 15 or 20 minutes. Some lovely football to create some really, really nice chances. The first chance fell to Elijah, who swiveled and got some sort of contact on a close range effort, which the goalkeeper was out to smother. But the golden chance came just after the 10-minute mark. Some brilliant football. Shandon Baptiste, who for the first 20-25 minutes just controlled that game of football, fed Clark in the centre of the park. He slid a ball through, slide rule past to Morris, whose run was absolutely perfect. You're just expecting the net to bulge. He doesn't lift it over the keeper and he hits the keeper. But if that had gone in, that would have just capped off a brilliant first 10 or 15 minutes and would have been exactly the sort of settled down job after Monday night that the Town would have been looking for.
I agree. And the people involved in that move sort of gave you an idea of why the messages don't panic, or it was after Monday, because Clark didn't play in that game. And I thought he was the creative spark. That was the first of 2 wonderful through balls that should have got him on the assist charts. And Baptiste, like you say, was running the show. And Edward said all along since he signed him, and he said it to me actually, I questioned him about whether he was going to get midfield additions, and his first thing to say was Shandon Baptiste is a really good footballer. He needs people to know that, and I think we saw it there really. So you know, really positive stuff in the centre of the park. Totally different vibe from Monday, and they controlled it, and that move for Morris's shot really should have ended in a goal. And I think he'd be disappointed that he didn't as well, because he had time to find the spot.
Yeah, he seemed to laugh afterwards, because, and it was one of those, he was laughing at himself because it was such a bad finish from the position that he was in. He knew he should have found the back of the net, and he's kind of like laughing as in, how could you have just hit the goalkeeper like that, sort of thing, rather than not laughing that he didn't care or anything. It was just...
Maybe he's just unused to it. You didn't get that sort of freedom in the Premier League, did you? Yeah.
There is that as well, yeah. We should just say, obviously, Clark in for Zach Nelson, and Amari Bell was back for Joe Johnson. No slight on those two whatsoever, but if they were fit last Monday, they'd have played anyway.
It was always going to be the case, isn't it, that the senior players, when they come back, they will be ahead of them. And Zach and Joe, as promising they are going to be squad players, and are going to have to take their chances when they get them. But yeah, Edwards played the old switcheroo there, and then he said that Amari Bell was likely not going to be available, but maybe that's clever in a way. I mean, you'd like to be given the full hand there, but he's shielding that a bit, because he was on the bench for the Monday game, and then playing from the start, and obviously never would have completed 90 minutes straight away after the amount of time he's been out. But just having him there is a reassuring presence. And he's been that since really Nathan started moving him to a left centre back rather than the left back. I think that's a better position for him. It just sort of calmed things down, and then Mengi equally on the side of him fed off that, and he was imperious. I thought a wonderful game, Mengi, and it was just an air of calmness and what we expected from a Luton side before that Monday game, which we didn't get, but we did at Fratton Park. Yeah,
he's a relaxed character, isn't he, Amari Bell? I mean, you know, obviously Jamaica international, he's kind of got that sort of relaxed Caribbean vibe about him, and doesn't panic under pressure. And actually, you've got to give credit to Portsmouth. They pressed very, very well, but Luton are just so comfortable on the ball suddenly that we passed through that pressure. There was a couple of times that we passed through that pressure, and the one sort of meaningful time early on in the game was when we were literally passing around and back. Again, Baptiste has broken the line. He sent Chio down the line. Chio, give us an end product. He did. Crossed it. Perfect for Elijah. Heads it down. Does everything right, Elijah. Maybe if you were being really critical, he could have got a bit more power on that header. But even so, he's placed it as far away from the keeper as he can do whilst keeping it on target. But to be fair to Norris, he's pulled off a brilliant save, pushed it onto the crossbar. And not for the first time this week, it's gone off the crossbar into a Portsmouth sort of territory rather than back to Elijah, which it could easily have done.
Yeah, I mean, Norris had a particularly inspired first half. I think Luton could have been 2 or 3 up, really, and that's a testament to how well they played in that first half an hour.
Given their man of the match as well over the course of the game, Norris. And
he was. I mean, that speaks volumes, really, doesn't it? So, yeah, it was unfortunate. You'd like them to take those chances because they just need to get up and running, don't they? But to actually have those chances in the first place was good, because it didn't feel, everything felt laboured against Burnley. It never felt like there was a connection between the midfield and there wasn't, and the attack, and that things didn't quite work other than the goal, obviously. But it felt like every time Luton went forward, there were spaces, and we did point that out in the preview that we thought there might be spaces against Portsmouth, but they made them count, and they found them, and they passed through lines. And what you said about playing out from the back there was a couple of instances were really quite impressive, with one-touch triangles playing around the Portsmouth press, which was good, and that's going to be important because there'll be teams that will want to go and do that to Luton, and they've got that option as well as the old option of get it up quickly to Elijah, and I hope he holds it up and brings other players in. So there was a lot to be really positive about that. And you just, when what happened, you felt, oh no, at the time. With hindsight now, we know it's a great, there was a great reaction afterwards. But at the time, you're thinking, well, this is only going to go one way, and we've only got ourselves to blame. There should be 1-0 up. But, in the fullness of it, with the ability to look back, that there was a lot of positives in different facets of the game that first half an hour, and then the second 60 minutes, but still had attacking verve more than Portsmouth, really.
Yeah, I would agree with that. One of the reasons why I brought up beating the press is because it was a large part to do with the sending off as well, because the first yellow card has come from assessing a situation and how we can plan to beat their press and get ourselves up the pitch. As Rob alluded to in the post-match, he was not happy, fair to say, with that first yellow card. I mean, everyone in the stands couldn't work out why that yellow card was given to Kaminski and not Mengi, because it was quite clearly Mengi who was over the goal kick. Kind of, I'd done a little bit of homework. You can't find anything definitive, but you kind of suspect that much in like it's the manager that gets booked when one of his coaches are out of line, because it's the goalkeeper's responsibility for a goal kick. Any time wasting that goes on around it lands at the feet of the goalkeeper, kind of thing. But
if that's not black and white, though, then that's really you can understand the frustration of it, because that's just left far too open for interpretation, for my liking.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Now, I'm not going to I'm not going to praise us for the amount of time that we took for these goal kicks, because we all were whistling and everything when James Trafford was doing it on Monday night, and I'm a big stickler for time wasting. The game's got to speed up. It really has.
Not according to Rob, though.
Well, time wasting. And I understand that, and I don't think we were in the strictest terms of it time wasting, because you wouldn't after 28 minutes when you're controlling the game. But if we are going to do this, and Rob is going to tell the players to assess the situation, they have to assess it an awful lot quicker than what we were assessing it in those two the instant of the yellow card, but not 90 seconds earlier. Kaminski had been warned as well, so that was two occasions where they've just taken that little bit too long to assess the situation. And I guess the more that we do this, and the more that we bring teams onto us, and we're going to have to when we play these lesser sides down the bottom who are just hell bent on frustrating and parking two banks of four and everything, which I guess is why he's develop that rather than just lump it up to Elijah and win some second balls, which used to be the tactic. The more that we do it, you would imagine we'll get speedier at assessing the situation and who we can pass to and where we can do it. It just so happens that on this occasion we had a referee who was a bit of a stickler for the wasting of time. Got that yellow card out, and then the second yellow card. I mean, I don't think Kaminski sees the attacking player, because he runs directly from behind Mengi, who is pretty much in, because Kaminski isn't coming out to clear that ball. If you watch it, Kaminski actually comes out and controls the ball as if to just leave it for Mengi, who was running back, to then move on. He doesn't swing at the first one. It's the second bloke who, I mean, Kaminski knows by this time he's off and walking, so he takes the second one out with him, doesn't he? Absolutely flies in at the second one. But he doesn't come out, you know, when a goalkeeper comes charging out of his box, like at the rate of knots, and boots the ball as far away as he possibly can. He wasn't doing that. He was literally just controlling the ball, I think, for Mengi. So I don't think he's seen the striker. And by the time he makes contact with the ball, or the ball's there to be made contact with, striker's nipped in, Kaminski's wiped him out, wipes the next one out, and gets his second yellow card, and off he goes. I have no problem with the red card whatsoever. I think it's sending off. I'm not here to criticise Kaminski or anything like that. He's got way more credit in the bank for, you know, he's just had a brain fade. You know, it might be that he didn't see the striker. Well, it might even be a legacy of Monday night where he should have come out for the second goal and didn't come out for it. There's so many sort of factors at play here. But ultimately, I think the red card was a fair enough red card. I mean, if he wasn't sent off for the two yellow cards, he was going for wiping Matey out anyway.
I mean, that was going to be my point. I think that it was symptomatic of what happened on Monday night when the second goal, when Mengi's screaming at him to come out and he was a bit delayed. And I think there's an effort there to try and make amends for that. And I mean, it's clumsy and it's reckless. And he should have got booked for it. But
and the vicinity of it to the first yellow card makes it even more crazy and clumsy, doesn't it? But that, you know, he's doing what he's been asked to do. He's just got it wrong. As I alluded to a moment ago, Rob really wasn't happy with the sending off. Here's what he had to say to the official club website after the game.
I have to talk about the sending off. I think it's mental. You know, I do. I think, you know, I'm asking them to play a certain way, and I'm asking Tedden to wait on the ball to have a look and assess what they're doing. We want to try and build and try and make 2 or 3 short passes to then bring them onto us so we can get behind them and then go and speed the game up. We saw some really good examples of that earlier in the game. We're not wasting time. I'm not trying to waste time. Why would I do that in the first half? And if you're going to book anyone, then I don't know why they don't book Tedden. Tedden's the one who's waiting on the ball. I'm asking him to, by the way. crazy.
Mm.
So, and then obviously, you know, the second one I'm not complaining about, but then we're having to shuffle it about, and becomes a really difficult or a different afternoon for us.
Strong words from the boss regarding that sending off, as we alluded to beforehand. Time wasting is a big thing, and maybe that's something that they can work on being a little bit quicker at.
I would imagine there'll be a letter going into the PGMOL to find out exactly what the fuck has happened there. Yeah, you knew it as soon as he'd done it, and you're thinking, oh my God. And just because of the time, when you'd sort of got that platform of, oh, we're actually playing well here. The players that have come back have fitted in well. The tactics are going well. We've made some chances. Things are going well. And you're like, this feels typical of perhaps where we thought we might have been in the wake of that Monday night game, that things would go so badly wrong. And I was fearful all the way up till halftime. And then from the restart, wasn't fearful at all.
Yeah, it was an interesting one, wasn't it? Because, I mean, first of all, Morris was the sacrificial lamb.
Yeah.
Which interested me because you kind of think when you go down to 10, your attacking output's probably going to be limited. You're looking at set pieces, and every single set piece we've had this season has gone towards Morris. So you're kind of like, we've just taken the focal point of the set pieces off. He's also the captain. It's, you know, you've taken your captain, your focal point, and he's just had the best chance of the match as well. You know, you can kind of like, because when it happened, I was thinking, oh my word, who's he going to take off? And I kind of had it in my mind that maybe Chong would have been the one to go off, just purely because it's hard to get a midfielder in the game when you're going to be defending a lot more. But he took Morris off, and as it turned out, it was a decent enough decision. Shazy's obviously gone back in goal. Question's got to be whether that bloke will ever concede a goal again after his 15 minutes in the Premier League, and would have turned out to be best part of 75 minutes, didn't it, on Saturday?
He's not conceded a goal since 2002, I've heard.
Indeed, yeah, and I'm sure he'll be the first to tell everyone that the longer it goes on, and let's hope that continues for another 7 days at the very least, because obviously we presume he'll be between the sticks against Preston, who certainly will be someone other than Kaminsky. That's for sure. Yeah, those 15 minutes after half time, that could have got drastically out of hand, didn't it? Because we're still playing a back five at this point. We haven't had time to really adjust to anything. And whilst we were playing the back five, the left winger, the number 20, whose name I didn't catch, it was something along the lines of Silvino or something along Silvera. He was getting in down behind Chio whilst we were trying to get Chio the other side. He was getting in a little bit too easily, wasn't he? And he looked a bit lively, and he was causing a little bit of problems. There was a massive shout for a penalty. Now you're going to have to entertain me as to whether it was or wasn't a penalty. It's down the other end. I'm looking through the net. Goalkeeper's in the way. It's as sunny as anything anyway. But there was a right old roar. Then there was a red card came out. That soon quickly got put away. Then a yellow card came out. It was pandemonium for a bit. This is hot off the heels of the sending off. For about 5 minutes, many maniacs had left the asylum, and it was just all hell was breaking loose.
Yeah, Portsmouth turned up the heat, and it was worrying. You're thinking, bloody hell, we've got 60 minutes of this. With the penalty shout, I think they could be hard done. Feel a little bit hard done, but I've seen them given, I've seen them not given.
Enlighten me what the shout was for.
Roy Walters pulled back. I think it was Connor Shaughnessy. It looked like it anyway. Either that or Shaughnessy's off balance and he's tried to sell it, which could be a case. I only saw one replay of it, not the many you get in the Premier League, admittedly, but
it's one more than I did.
Well, yeah, and the referee doesn't even get that, so he gets one shot at it, and you know it's one of those that could have gone either way. So they were adamant, weren't they? They were furious. They were all up in arms. So
I mean, I presume he was booked for his protestation, wasn't it? He was initially sent off for it, wasn't he? But I think it was pretty obvious that the referee got the wrong card out of his pocket. I mean, to be fair, I thought he was colourblind all afternoon anyway, so red and yellow cards probably didn't make too much of a difference. But yeah, from there on, because we'd killed the crowd with that passage of play in the first 25 minutes, everything's going hunky-dory. Now all of a sudden, this is a fever pitch atmosphere, you know, all this play up Pompey, you can't quieten that down. The only thing it didn't have was that bell, which is usually there. But really, Shazy's not had a great deal to do in that 15 minutes, which is credit to the way that we defended. But once Rob got them in at half time, he's put together a different plan, because we've come out with a back four. And any regular listeners or watchers of this podcast, you know, you'll know that I've been bleating on and on and on about this for a while. So the back four is now Alfie, Amari'i, Tedden, and Ruel Walters is right back, who I've got to say looks an absolute machine in that position. He looks brilliant. Four in front of them of Chong, Baptiste, Clark, Chio. Obviously, Chio and Chong's role is to get as far forward and support Elijah as possible when we've got the ball, and get back and make it sort of back six when we haven't got the ball. But the fella on the left wing, who was causing some havoc towards the end of that first half, became a non-event. They doubled up with him, Chio and Walters down that side. There was no cutting in and playing them crosses anymore. He had to go around the outside, and pretty much every cross he put was either overhit or went straight out of play. He was not a factor for the rest of the game. And
that's what you want from those sort of players. They never show them in on their favoured foot. They're trying to cut in and either cross or curl one into the far corner, aren't they? And that's sensible and disciplined defending. And that's what we saw for 60 minutes. Well, definitely for 45 minutes. It was a bit harem-scarum before half-time, but sort of disciplined, thoughtful, intelligent defending, and it was a joy to see.
Yeah, there was a couple of times where they got in, sort of the longer the second half went on, and then Mengi just entered beast mode and got in front of the striker and said, "Not today, sunshine," and took care of that. But there was also another passage of play, wasn't there, where again we've beaten the Portsmouth press. The ball breaks to Clark, who was having a brilliant game. He turned inside his man. Elijah makes his move. He sends him beautifully. Elijah just got to open his body up and curl it in the top corner, but he tries to do it the other way, doesn't he, inside of his right foot, and curls it across the face of goal, whereas usually it would be the other way around, curling it in towards the back stick. Hard to be too harsh on Elijah, but you knew chances weren't going to be regular in that second half, and you'd like to have seen him work the keeper at the very least with that one, because it was a golden opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, one thing with Elijah, you can't ever fault his work rate. Sometimes he gets on hot streaks and he needs one, and then they'll come. And I thought he snatched at that, I thought, and it looked almost like a toe poke when what you wanted is a caressing curler into the far corner. But the fact that Luton was still dangerous on the attack was impressive, because it gave Portsmouth something to think about, that they couldn't just do what they did for that 5 minutes after the red card and just go all out attack for it, because they knew there were pockets that Luton could pick them off. And it was a really intelligent pass from Clark, and that was missing from the Monday night. There was no spark in the middle. Everything tried to go down the flanks, and they cut that off with double and triple marking on Doughty and Chio. So you needed that, and it was really good to see, because, like I say, I mean, Clark was fantastic in the Championship 2 seasons ago, and there's no reason why he can't be again.
Yeah, I agree. Let's just focus on Jordan Clark for a moment, because there were 1 or 2 missed time tackles, and I think he got frustrated with some of the refereeing decisions in that first half as well, which some of them were starting to get a little bit bizarre. And then, just for good measure, he got absolutely wiped out towards the end of that first half with what looked like a nasty tackle from Marlon Pack, who we highlighted in the preview show as the man to watch. We snuffed out any threat. Every time he got the ball, someone was on him. He didn't have no time on the ball. He couldn't pick those passes that we were fearful that he could, and that was good. And obviously, he went off towards the end of the second half. I think he pulled something or something or other. But when Clark was on the ball, he used it brilliantly. He takes us forward, either whether that's driving with the ball or with his forward passing. He just looks already to have a nice relationship with Shandon Baptiste.
Yeah,
and as a striker, you want to know if you make a run, the ball's coming. And you kind of got the feeling all throughout the game that the strikers were making the runs because they knew that Clicker was gonna find them, and he should have had two assists to his name, and they would have been lovely assists. They would have been kind of like the assist that Barkley got for him in that Man City Cup tie.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would have just that was literally all Saturday missed. Just that finishing touch to one of those moves. And if we'd come away with a 1-0, even 11 versus 11, if we'd come away with a 1-0, it would have been the ideal away performance. But had we come away 1-0, 11 versus 10, I mean, it's kind of utopia, really, wouldn't it? As it is, I'm more than happy with a 0-0. Hey, listen, when you've got your starting goalkeeper watching on from the sidelines for the last, well, what turned out to 70 minutes with all the injury time and everything, to keep a clean sheet, having not kept one for 18 games, and highlighted it in the Burnley review, didn't I? The amount of goals we've conceded. I'm over the moon with that.
Yeah, me too. I think it was a really, other than that killer instinct and finding the goal, the fact that the chances were there was good, and that's something to build on. everything else about the game, when Luton were on top with 11, really liked the patterns of play that were being thought through, and Jordan Clark was at the fulcrum of that. And I just love the way he finds these little pockets of space, and he was. We highlighted it that Portsmouth would leave them, but you still got to do the work to get there, and he was finding them. His touch was assured, and then he could pick out a pass. That was wonderful. So to get in those positions is impressive. You need one of those strikers to start. Just take one and get off the mark, but it'll come if they're creating those chances with 10 men. Then and they were with 11 as well. When you play Preston at the weekend, then you'd be hopeful that they could do that again. So there was lots to be pleased about in all areas of the game. And I think everybody was really happy at the end with the result and the effort, the performance, the discipline. Everybody would have been ecstatic with a win, but you take the point all day long.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. Substitutions in the second half. Joe Taylor. We said that there won't be many opportunities where Joe Taylor can play in the style that Joe Taylor wants to, but here was one ideal one. Portsmouth have pushed up to the halfway line. Why wouldn't you? Year 11 against 10. You've got to go and win the game at home then at that point, haven't you? Joe Taylor can get in behind at this point, and he did. He made a move in the second half, worked the goalkeeper. Probably only a comfortable save, but it kind of shows that something is there. Unfortunately for Taylor, those kind of opportunities are going to be few and far between at championship level of playing for Luton Town. So I still don't think anything's changed in the long term in terms of, I don't think he'll be here come September the 1st, but maybe just even that brief cameo might change the thinking from letting him go permanently to just making it a loan deal.
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, that run, it was full of fortune.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was full of fortune, but it was brilliant in a way of relieving pressure, which there wasn't that much of it, to be honest. But it's exciting, wasn't it? That's what it is. And the determination to keep going, got a couple of ricochets, and then, perhaps his final shot could have been a bit stronger. But maybe he's wondering how he got up that far up the pitch as well. So you can see why people like Joe Taylor. I think your description in the season preview podcast or whenever it was spot on, that obviously he doesn't get ahead of Elijah and Carlton and Chongi even, who's been used up there or thereabouts. But against a Portsmouth side that are a man up and thinking they could go and try and win the game at home, it's their first home game for 12 years in the Championship. There's all this stuff that they're riding a wave of emotion on. I think it was a clever substitution and could have paid off.
Yes, so nearly did, yeah. The other one which had to be made, you referenced it earlier in the podcast, Amari'i was never going to do 90 minutes. That wasn't part of the equation. Tom Holmes, though, came on. Would it have been Joe Johnson, like for like sort of thing? No, it wasn't. It was Tom Holmes, because at this point, Portsmouth were getting a wee bit desperate, weren't they? They were bringing their own pretty tall people on. They were starting to lump balls in the box. As soon as Matt Ritchie came on, you knew that the game plan had changed. And Holmes isn't the kind of defender that you would want defending one-on-one on the halfway line. This is no disrespect to him at all. You have your styles, and that's how it is. He is very much what I would call an old school defender. You stick a number 9 up against him and he'll stuff him out of the game. You put crosses in the box and he'll head them out all day. That's the kind of defender that we've got. I don't know if there's going to be that situation whereby he can flourish at Luton in terms of the fact that not many teams are going to attack us in that way this season. But he's only 24, I think I'm right in saying. So he can evolve into the kind of defender that Rob wants. There'll have been a reason why he signed him, because he'll have known what he was getting. But he made one key interception in the second half. There was a header headed across goal. It looked like it was waiting to be tapped in much the same way that our goal against Burnley happened. Only he was in the way to head it away. And the one thing I would say about him, he looked an assured presence. When the ball went out, when we cleared it, he was screaming at Mengi and at Walters and at Doughty, up, and he was getting us out of the penalty box. Whereas last season when we were in these low blocks, and admittedly it's against Premier League quality, of course it was, but we couldn't get out of the penalty box until it ended up in the back of our net. So this time he was screaming, get up, get up, get up. And they did, and they moved. And it also helped that Shazy was quite vocal as well. If there's one criticism that you can have of Kaminski that's a legitimate one, he's a very quiet goalkeeper. I don't know whether that's just because of a lack of comfort with the language still, or whatever it may be.
So. I mean, we spoke to him, didn't we? He speaks very good English.
Yeah, but I sit behind pretty much every game. I sit behind the goal, and you don't really hear Kaminski very much, but you could hear Shazy. Yes, I mean you can hear Shazy 100 miles away, can't you? To be fair, but they got up the pitch and they condensed the spaces again, and Portsmouth really, apart from like long balls, which again was playing into our hands by this point, I can't remember a save that Shazy made that I wouldn't expect to, other than the one that he made, which he pushed into Pelly, but the ball had already gone out of play by that point.
Yeah, the whistle had already gone in it, but you still had to make the save, and for somebody that didn't have a warm up, just come straight on cold. A really fantastic game, to be honest. We all love him, don't we? We love James Shea. He never lets Luton down at all, really. So we'll get to see him again in the next game. I shouldn't wonder. But yeah, you're right. There was they were throwing balls into the box, and you just felt, perhaps I was going to say for the first time this season, there's only been 2 games, but you felt that if Burnley did that, which they weren't doing anyway, and their attack was entirely different, but you felt that the inexperienced nature of that defence on Monday night probably wouldn't be able to cope with that either. But you stick Bell and then Holmes, who took over, and Mengi in there, and I didn't feel that there was going to be any trouble. And obviously when they did get that one chance from Ogilvie, who had the header, Holmes was there doing exactly what he was brought on to do. And I think, I think Holmes is behind all the centre-backs that were there last season. That's clear to see. But I think if he sticks around the squad, he'll learn from them and he'll get better because he's only young. And you never know. I mean, Tom Lockyer was like that when he first came to Luton. He just improved vast amounts when he got here. So there's that could possibly be on the agenda for Tom Holmes, but for the fact that he came in and took over a very good Amari'i Bell performance and carried it on and helped Luton get to that clean sheet was a good first championship bow for him, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, a decent squad defender. Is he the man who's going to fill every single issue that we've got at the back? No, but one thing he is his centre back who could play in a 4.
Yep.
And whether we're going to go to this 4 regularly, that I'm convinced that would be the long term plan. Just because you've watched the opening weekend of the Premier League, all bar 2 teams, only Crystal Palace have played with a back 3. The rest of them have all played with a back 4. Ipswich took on Liverpool with a back 4 and pressed high and everything else. That's the way the game's going, and I'm convinced at some point we're going to have to do that. So maybe this was a good thing that we've gone into a back 4 and we've shown that we can defend strong, we can stop passing lanes, which is a huge problem that we've had for a while now, but still have that attacking verve about us as well. And when you think there'll be an extra man more often than not because we won't be down to 10, that attacking part will only get better were we to do that. I still think we would wait for personnel to come back, notably Marvellous Nakamba. You would want an actual shield in front of 2 centre-backs rather than, with the best will in the world, Baptiste and Clark, who are tidy footballers rather than defensively minded strongholds. But the fact that we can do that against a side who had all to gain and not much to lose on a day like that, it really does suggest to me that there is potential for that. So we've gone through the game. We're pretty happy with the performance, and as you can tell by what Rob said after the game, he was fairly content with the overall display as well. Again, here's the remainder of that interview with the club website post-match.
That's bottom line. It was a good day for us. It was after Monday and the disappointment of the result. It was important that the supporters, who were brilliant, saw a team that was fighting for them, for the fans, for the badge, for the club, a team that was cohesive, organised and everything else, and they saw all that. With 11 men, I thought we were really good and looked quick and dynamic, created big chances and should have been 1 or 2 up. There's no doubt about that. And then when we went down to 10, showed a different side to ourselves that they needed to see, the lads needed to feel as well. to to keep that rapport with our fans, because that's going to be important this year. I understand there was anger and disappointment the other day after the game. It's a really disappointing result. There's reasons. It's difficult circumstances. We've had a relegation. We're dealing with a lot. We're getting a lot of people back. We're working to get people in. No excuses. We got stuff wrong on the night, but I think the stuff that we got wrong, we showed that we learned and took it on today. So, from a defensive point of view, our covering positions were brilliant. I thought that back unit were outstanding today. And I'm not going to pick out any individuals, but they were really good. And then we looked fast, dynamic, quick. When we had the opportunity to go and attack them as well, especially with 11 players, and created the biggest chances. So, yeah, a good day. On another day, I think we should have won the game as well, but we didn't. We take something from it, and we're off and running now with a good performance. Good, gives the lads some belief. Good performance coming away from home. This place, like a little bit like Kenilworth Road, there was a lot spoken about it, and the atmosphere it was going to create, and I think we quietened it well. And yeah, loads of really good performances. So overall, a good start. Lots of work to continue to do. People to come back. Amari'i was great when I know so I wasn't going to pick off individuals, but considering he's been out for so long as well, big plus. I was never going to be able to get through the full game, but really appreciate how hard he pushed and how long he went into the game. Yeah, so overall, yeah. Like I said the other day, my job is to not try and get too carried away after we lose a game. We got things wrong the other night, not hiding away from that, but it was things that are able to be rectified. And I think, the lads have showed some intelligence and put that into practice within a few days. The job of a coach or a manager is to keep repeating, repetition. And what can sometimes frustrate us is you work on one thing and then all of a sudden that's forgotten about there. And no, we've got to put it all together. Today, in and out of possession was all there for us.
Yep, I think that's a fair assessment from Rob. Really, really was an encouraging performance. But the thing I took so much pleasure, so much comfort from, was just the way we played. You've got to keep the ball in modern football. If you don't keep the football, just watch England in the Euros. If you don't keep the football, it's going to come against you at some point. And particularly at this stage of the season where it's hot days, and these stadiums are bowls, aren't they? They're probably 10 degrees hotter on the pitch than they are in the stands, sort of thing. If you're chasing the football around, it's a bloody long afternoon. We had them chasing it around, and you could tell that, they were tired. They were tiring a little bit. Obviously, the game changed when the red card went off, and roles were reversed a little bit. But if we're going to become a side that doesn't just get out of this division but stays up when we go into the Premier League, we have to be used to having the ball in nasty situations, being comfortable to deal with it. Yeah, there's going to be the odd time where there's a cock-up. Look at Southampton on Saturday. But, the more it's like muscle memory, isn't it? The more you do something, the more you get used to it, the better you are, the more comfortable you are at it. And if we can do that for another 44 games and we do go up, long term, and we've always got to think long term, don't just think of today, you've always got to think long term. That just bodes so well, the fact that we can do it, because we are going to bring some additions in. I mean, Rob's been saying it all the time, they're working hard to do it, and I think it will happen. They're not bringing players in just to bring players in. They've only made 2 signings, but they already look absolute gems. So any more that come in are likely to fit that mould as well, as in look absolute gems. There's only improvement to come from this, not downgrading.
Yeah, and that's why perhaps they're having a look at Liam Walsh, who's been training with them for the last couple of weeks. People are instantly critical because of his injury record, and that's understandable, not just for his career, because it hasn't taken off since he went to Swansea. I think he made 37 appearances total in 3 seasons.
Do you wonder do you think that's why this is taking so long? Because we are crying out for central midfielders. The fact that they've not signed him already, do you think that they're just looking at him in training over a block of time to make sure that he can train at the intensity that we train at? And believe me, we do train at intensity. I've watched our training when we've gone down and interviewed players. It is intense. If he can go through a certain period of time without picking up an injury, that would give you more confidence than if you brought him in on Monday, made a decision on Friday, and then the following Monday, because he hasn't done 2, 3, 4 consecutive weeks at our at our pace, he then goes down. Do you think that's what it's all about? Because everyone, I mean, even Stevie Wonder can tell that we need a central midfielder, even if it's just for depth. Do you think that's why they're taking their time on this? Because Rob really seemed to talk him up in the press conference, and if he's as good as Rob was talking him up, we would want him to have played Saturday, wouldn't we? But there's obviously some reason why they're taking their time with him, and if it is that, then I fully understand it. The way he was talking, he sounds like I've never seen the bloke play football, but he sounds like a really, really good footballer in the mould that would really help us in the way that we wanted to play or did play on Saturday.
Yeah, I think there's an element of that. I think, first and foremost, he's a ball player. So, he's good with the ball. And that's what Luton need, as you just highlighted there, that we're going to have to do a lot more with it, keep the ball and be effective. So there's that. But then there's obviously the injury record. So he's ruptured an Achilles that did for much of his Swansea career. Maybe being slightly facetious here, but he's been at Swansea for 3 years, so they only pass sideways, don't they? So maybe they're trying to see what he can do when he's got his head up and has got Elijah Adebayo to pick out.
I'm glad they're one of the last opponents we play. They might have forgotten about you slagging them off by the time we do it. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see where we go with that. Obviously, free transfer, so we don't need to do that this side of the transfer window if we don't want to. You would imagine it's only fair on the player that we do it sooner rather than later, so that if we don't do it, he gets a club somewhere along the line.
Yeah, I mean, that's the vibes that I got off Edwards when he did the pre-match presser. I think it's due diligence, and I think it's sensible when Luton have had the injury record they have, and people are questioning why are all these players getting injured. I mean, we asked him about that in the build-up to the Burnley game. Somebody asked him, have you looked into the medical side of it? Have you done investigations to find out why this is happening? And of course they have. They've done all of that. And sometimes it's just a freak set of circumstances, maybe one or two. Maybe they pushed a little bit too hard and they've learnt from that. They've certainly learnt the way to reintroduce injured players a bit better.
Which we should add is why we're starting this season with so many players still on the injured list, rather than rushing them back for that first game. We've known that we're not playing Saturday, Tuesday until deeper into September. So if they don't come back until the 1st of September, for example, they're only missing 4 league games. That's not even a tenth of the season.
Yeah, there's all these things. I mean, there's going to be an element of being scarred by the injuries, as we all are, because I think there's a sense of what could have been. I think that Luton would still be in the Premier League if we didn't have those injuries that went on for so long since January, and some of them are still continuing. I mean, there's a debate to be had there, but we certainly had started to figure it out before everybody started dropping like flies. So if you're going to sign players that have an injury record, you want to look at that. But Barkley was one, had a couple of injuries. That turned out all right. I think it's not as clear cut as just going, well, why are we looking at injured players when we've got all this money? But if he's going to fit into a type that Edwards is looking for, which is quite possible, because let's face it, if you get the midfielders currently at the club fit and available, you've got Nakamba as the pivot, and you'd have Shandon, Baptiste and Clark ahead of them. That's the 3 in the 4-3-3 that you're talking about. The attack sorts itself out. That's what played on Saturday. And then the back 4 is whoever's available, whoever's on form, because we've got enough centre-backs. So that would be the 3. But if you add another midfielder in there, then you've got options if one or other isn't working, of probably Baptiste or Clark, but maybe a like for Clark in the way that Walsh can play the ball. So there's those things to consider as well. And I don't think it's as cut and dry as just saying, well, we shouldn't be looking at these players. The reason they probably are is it would fit the mould of somebody who's hungry and looking for something to prove. That's a main feature of their transfer business, has happened all along for many years, and Shandon Baptiste is the latest one of those. Again, he's had his injury problems. And so there's that element of it, and you're not going to have to pay a transfer fee. He would have been on decent wages at Swansea. Whether they match that or not, I don't know. But if he's not got a club and he's not attached, then you probably could get a good deal out of that. There's all these different things, and I know the argument is, well, we've got all this money, why are we not just spending it? But we've explained why that is the case. There's the future of the club to think about until the future of the club is really sorted out in a sustainable way. I mean, it's there, it's getting there, it's there, let's say, but you want it to continue long into the future. Then, you know, trying to pay big money for players isn't probably the best way. I like this way of getting players that have something to prove. It hasn't let Luton down so far. So, you know, there's lots to consider in a transfer like that, I suppose, or, you know, getting a player in like that. And I think that's the right way to do it. You know, as well as looking in the market as well. I think people are thinking, well, that would be the only midfield signing, Walsh. But if you can get Walsh for nothing and then add another as well, that suddenly the midfield situation is really looking a lot rosier.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm looking forward to the week to come, actually, because I think this is the week that something will happen. Because, and I say that because obviously I know football doesn't stop for a bank holiday weekend, but, you know, next weekend is a bank holiday weekend. Tuesday night is now going to be QPR away in the Cup. What a shit draw that was. So that's probably going to wipe out most sort of activity on the Tuesday in terms of identifying and things like that. And then, of course, transfer deadline day is QPR at home in the league that night. So pretty much you wouldn't want to be doing your business on transfer deadline day when you've got a game of football to prepare for and go through on deadline day. So I'm kind of guessing that they would like, or they would, you know, that if they're going to get to the stage where they're going to sort of push the buttons ahead of the transfer window, I think it would be this week, because this is a completely clear week, a completely normal week, and probably a nice week, because if we can get someone in to play that Carabao Cup tie, then all of a sudden they've got to give I don't want to say pressure-free game, because I'd like us to take the cups a little seriously this year, purely because if other teams don't, you know, you can get what we've got some young players that are going to need some game time, and they're probably not going to get it in the league. And just as I'm saying it, I'm thinking of the Tom Lockyer reaction when we lost to Newport 2 years ago, kind of thinking of the young players that would probably be thinking like that. So I do think this week would be a week. I'd be surprised if we get to next Saturday. I'm not saying I'd be disappointed or anything else like that, or rather, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point this week signings are made and potentially, you know, bigger signings than what people are sort of expecting. I'm not talking signings just Liam Walsh, but it looks like Andros Townsend's out of the building, assuming that the Turkish League approved the transfer for that, and that's fine. That sounded like an adult conversation and reflection of what we can do to help him and what, you know, he needs to prolong the rest of his career. He's done fantastic for us. He's done everything that we wanted him to do and more, and we wish him well. But ultimately, it does free up another spot in the 25. And you just kind of get the feeling that balls are going to start to roll now. Premier League teams have seen what they've got. The good ones that have struggled will probably go out and panic and buy a couple more. You know, your Man United who didn't look great, your Chelsea who didn't look great. So they'll have they'll have to get rid of some as well. The lesser sides who didn't look great are probably going to panic and go out and buy some more. Your Southamptons, your Ipswiches, your Notts Forest, particularly in light of the fact that they got a serious injury, didn't they? Your Evertons. So I get the feeling now that they all know where they are and what they want. They're going to sort of start it's like that. It's like the old champagne glasses at a wedding, isn't it? Once the first one overflows, it all goes down. And I think it's going to start this week, really.
Yeah, well, it has to, doesn't it, really? But yeah, I think you're right. You know, on the Andros situation, I can understand people are disappointed to see him go. He's an experienced player. He's great on the ball, but maybe his legs aren't fully up to it. We don't know. But what they have said, if they have to get somebody out to get somebody in, then they'll do that. And Andros has been a backup player. He has since the turn of the year. He's come on as substitute. Maybe he wants to play more. We don't know what wages he's on, but he's got to be on decent wages, so that gets off the bill, and you can go looking for other players with those resources. So there is that. Yeah, I mean, it's a shame if it does happen. I mean, it's not cut and dry, by the way. Well, I was looking as much as I could do into this situation.
Got some sort of embargo, haven't they?
Antalya Sport, yeah, they've got a 3-window embargo imposed by FIFA until they pay back debts, which, and the reports I was looking at from March were believed to be about $2 million. But then the boss of the club was coming out in the press, in the Turkish press, saying, "Nah, it's only $200,000, and that's no problem." But if there's, it's still a problem, clearly. So it's not cut and dry that deal will happen. It hasn't happened yet, and he was in Turkey, we understand, on Thursday, Friday. So he may still be a Luton player. We don't know. It's a wait and see on that one. But yeah, there's. You know, you'd want to have the business all done by now, and that's what they've tried to do in recent years. I think we've explained some of the circumstances around it, being the Euros and the drip down from the Premier League hasn't started yet, and there's not been many signings. I mean, Liverpool played Ipswich yesterday, and they haven't made a single signing. And
their manager, in the press conference for that Ipswich game, said, "We're struggling to do business in this window." I mean, if Liverpool are struggling to do business in this window, why would Luton Liverpool's main target turn them down? So, you know, if people are turning Liverpool down, third best team in the country, might even be better than that. If, you know, now that Manchester City are getting their charges sorted out over the next few months, if they're getting turned down, then we've no divine right to attract anyone either. I think with Andros Townsend, I think he puts his body through an awful lot to recover after games. And in this league, you ain't got no time to recover after a game. You know, you got Saturday, you got Tuesday, you got Saturday, then Sky would want you on a Friday. And then by the time it's recovered, it's go time again. And I think if we stayed in the Premier League and we were playing Saturday, everyone would have been hunky-dory. But I just get the feeling that there isn't enough recovery time between matches for him to play 90 regularly, in which case we probably are better off sort of letting him go somewhere where he can prolong his career, and then at the same time replacing him within that 25-man squad, which someone who will be more useful for us on a boom, 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 boom basis.
Yeah, I think so. And the way that Luton want to play this, it's very high intensity pressing stuff. You've got to be able to maintain that, and I think they can scarcely get more players in that aren't going to be able to, which I guess is the concern around Walsh, but that one remains to be seen. But and I'm no expert on Turkish football, but there does seem to be a league where a lot of over 30s do tend to go to. So you would imagine that it's a lot less intense. Sorry, Turkish football fans, if I've got that wrong, yeah, please do correct me. But that would be my deduction from the sort of business that happens there, and that would be good for him. The climate would be better as well, wouldn't it? Nice and warm. So if you've got achy joints and stuff, I know I feel a lot better in the summer than I do in the winter. And I'm older than him now, and I'm bloody older than all of them. So, yeah, all these things they come into the equation. So yeah, it's one of those where you think, well, it's a high profile player. It was great to get him in, but maybe it just works for the pair of them. I mean, that was the intimation anyway we got from Edwards on Thursday, Friday.
Yeah, certainly seems to be no malice involved there, does there? It seems to be adult people making adult decisions and amicable and things like that. Yeah, there's less teams in the Turkish league, so it's less fixtures, so it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? And as I say, Andros, if he does go, he'll certainly go with everyone's best wishes, because not only has he been a fantastic role model on the pitch, been a wonderful role model off of it, I know for a fact that he has given some opinions with how we could improve the training ground and things like that with regards to recovery, cryo chambers being installed, you know, pools being installed, all of that kind of thing, that a Premier League player, bearing in mind we want to be a Premier League club, that an experienced Premier League player gets the best use out of. So he's recommended that, and you know by going down to the training ground that there is that cryo chamber there permanently now.
They've got them all in there, yeah. So, you know, those words of advice, I think they were looking at it anyway. They had, certainly before the for the Huddersfield playoff semi-final, they had them all in there because Adebayo particularly was completely crocked.
Like a queue for a bus, wasn't it?
Exactly. So, yeah, those sort of things. But that's what I mean. They're spending money on infrastructure. You've got to think, 10 years ago under Stilly, they were playing at Ailey Way, which is a potholed piece of grass with a porter cabin for a changing room and a destroyed ping pong table after Nathan got hold of it, apparently. But I think it was only a apocryphal story, I think, wasn't it? But
you don't know with him, do you?
You never know.
Catch him on the wrong day. I could see him with an axe going through the table tennis table.
So all these things, and they haven't got massive billionaire money. They can just go, right, we'll all couldn't do it now. Blimey, not that I'm going to. So yeah,
we're going to have to work on our infrastructure to keep banging that.
Yeah, no, knocking the microphones over here. So they weren't ever going to be able to do it all in one go. But what the Premier League money does allow them to do is get Power Court going, but also the facilities at the training ground. And I was up there just after the Stevenage game. They brought all the media up to the training ground, and we had a little chat and some lunch, which is very nice. The food up there, very nice. Well done to the chefs. And they were relaying a quarter of the training ground. So there's work constantly going on up there, and that gets sort of overlooked. That I remember I grew up in Lucy when I was younger, and I distinctly remember being up there in the Pleaties days and seeing some pre-season training going on up the back of Lucy Park up near Ravenhill Way, and doing shuttle runs at the old sort of pre-season where they'd all been boozing for the summer and come back and were getting put for their paces. And football's moved on now. You can't be doing that. You've got to have grass, carpet-like pitches on the grass, and the cryo stuff, the recovery stuff that you said, a canteen with top chefs in there giving you the right food. All of it is a great big puzzle, and they're trying to piece it together. So that's kind of what you're still battling against as well. Like you say, if you want to be a Premier League club, you've got to do the Premier League things, and they are. So they're getting there.
Yeah, they are. One of the things, actually, when you asked, or whoever it was who asked Rob whether they're assessing injuries, he mentioned waterlogged pitches at the training ground, didn't he? Now, I don't know if it's happened yet, but I do know it's happening, that one of the pitches at the training ground is having undersoil heating put in underneath it. So they are working on this injury thing. They will be able to train at the training ground regardless of the weather, because the undersoil heating will make sure that even if we have a terrible winter like we had last year with all the rain, it was flooded here, there and everywhere, wasn't it, on any field, really. So they are improving, they are sorting that out, but that does cost an awful lot of money. I mean, I am no expert on undersoil heating, but I don't think you're getting much change out of 7 figures,
And the dome's on the way as well, isn't it?
Dome's on the way.
That's been delayed. That should have happened ages ago. That was Luton Council being, well, we don't know. All the dealings there went on behind closed doors. We have absolutely no idea why they denied that, but it looks like it's going to be on the same patch of grass anyway, which I said at the time was a abandoned patch of grass that isn't used, because I live around that way. I know it. So it's probably 18 months, nearly 2 years too late, but it's happening.
Yep. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yep. So improvements off the pitch. And improvements on the pitch based on what we saw on Saturday. Much, much better performance from the Town. Probably didn't quite get the result that certainly that first 30 minutes deserved. And you've got to think, if that stayed 11v11, that at some point we would have, cracked the dam sort of thing, and we would have gone ahead. And then once you're ahead in these games, if you can beat the press and you can control the game, you're probably only likely to win the game more and more comfortably, a la Burnley on Saturday. So lots to be positive about. Still lots of improvement, and I think Rob alluded to that as well, as you heard earlier in the podcast. But no one's going to be the finished article after 2 games. And if you look at the table, there's only 3 teams out of 24 who have played 2 and won 2. And there are only another 4 who have played 2, won 1 and drawn 1. So already this division is working out in its normal stereotype of basket case and everyone beats everyone, and if you can predict it, good luck to you. And that's not likely to change. So solid point for the Town. Certainly something to build on. And we go to Preston on Saturday with a lot more optimism than we went into this game with, off the back of the kind of negative vibes of the performance on Saturday. I think that's a fair assessment of the situation.
Yeah, I'm much more calm about it. I was pretty calm about it anyway. I mean, there was a lot of, well, it was just a meltdown everywhere. I wasn't there about it, which is concerning to me. I am seriously worried about any sort of detraction from this lack of from this unity that was last season and even the season before, because it was so successful. And I think there's little things that can chip away at that. But I think you know, if they perform to that level for most games in this season, they're going to win. You know, the 20 odd games that you were saying that you need to be in the position to have a chance of promotion.
Yeah, there was no lack of unity at Fratton Park yesterday. The crowd from start to finish in the away end were absolutely brilliant, singing throughout, getting right behind everyone. There was no animosity, no negativity, no nothing really. You wouldn't have expected it to. You know, these are loyal. Obviously, it sold out fairly early. These were, you know, the fans that travel up and down the country week in, week out. So I guess we do have to be careful not to ride the social media bandwagon all the time, and not focus on those that are inside the grounds.
Well, I mean, so social media is not real life, is it? I mean, it is there for people to vent essentially, and it used to be fun, social media sometimes, and sometimes it's not that fun. But it's an important part of hearing about things and finding out about things. But yeah, it isn't real life, is it? So it's kind of like you'd always say, I think, you know, keep the faith, and that's not just being a happy clapper about it at all. It's just that it's worked so far, and one result is not your season.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, you don't just have to be a happy clapper, but at the same time, you don't have to go into panic mode at the first opportunity. And there is still 2 weeks of this transfer window to go. Everyone has told us that we'll be stronger over that coming time. And you just have, we have to place our faith in them. You just have as I said earlier, the two players that they brought in already look gems. And it's quite clear, both on the interviews that Rob's done and that programme column that Gary wrote after the Burnley game, that they're not just looking for players, they're looking for players that are going to improve us. And really and truly, when you think last season we were the 18th best team in the country, there ain't going to be a million players out there that are going to improve us, because we have got ourselves into a position where we are that good.
I also don't think that statement about stronger after window is going to be helpful this time, because I don't think he can be. You've lost Ross Barkley, who might get him back if he keeps sitting on their bench. By the way, he's just sitting on the bench for Aston Villa. It's like, how's your luck, mate? But that is. He took his chance, and he deserves his chance to fight for that. And maybe Amari'i's just giving players that have been there and he knows more about. Well, it's not for me. I don't care anymore. I wish him well, but I'm not sure that losing Ross Barkley and Sambi Lokonga is possible to be stronger. But as you did say in the season preview, it's maybe being stronger than the Championship side that went up to the Premier League, and I think that's achievable.
Yeah, being stronger than that, and being stronger than the 11 and the way that we played that Brighton game. That's the one, isn't it? We want to get out of this division, and we want to be a much better finished article than we were when we went to that Brighton game. And there are the challenges that lie ahead. So yeah, we'll trust them on that. We'll follow the week as we go, and hopefully we'll see some new signings. And when we do see them, I'm pretty confident that they'll probably be ones that haven't been bandied about the media. There might be the odd one that is true. I think McGuinness is getting more and more talk by virtue of the fact that he's been left out of the Cardiff City squad for both of their league games.
Well, sometimes you can only go on by what is said and what isn't said. And we got about... in the pre-match press conference, we got a lot about Liam Walsh because he's in the building, and obviously he got pictured sitting next to Jordan Clark in the Burnley game. When you ask about McGuinness, which we did, it was, well, I don't want to talk about other people's players, but he's been left out. The Cardiff manager is doing a lot more talking about it. He's not saying it's definitely Luton, but Luton is in the picture, isn't it? So that is, whether that happens or not, I don't know. But yeah, it's. I think it's it's on the table. That thing, isn't it?
Yeah, that one feels like, I mean, there's an awful lot of players that have been shouted out there by agents, by media outlets, by everything else that we wouldn't have been interested in. I highlighted them when we discussed it after the Burnley game and even in the season preview. This one does feel like one that we would be interested in. It's a position of need. He's a player who fits the way that we want to play, and he's of the age profile that we sign players. There were a couple of them, wasn't there, sort of elder statesmen of 28, 29, 30-year-olds. Luton just don't sign them in the Championship, and I don't see that changing this time around. So yeah, much better performance at Portsmouth. Hopefully we can use that as a platform, build on that for the rest of the season, and we can soon fly up this table and get to where we want to be. That's pretty much it for this episode of the podcast. Surprisingly, after we told everyone that there was never be 0-0 in a month Sundays, nobody went for 0-0. And so still 0-0 in terms of correct scores for everyone all round. But we've got 44 more goes at getting the correct answer somewhere along the line. Thanks to everyone for watching or listening. Thanks also to everyone who came up to me at Portsmouth on Saturday and said that they're delighted that the podcast's back, and thanked me for making some sensible comments and things like that. It really does appreciate it. It's just nice that people appreciate that we've done the podcasts. And well, for those that think we've got an agenda, hopefully Gary's happy with this particular episode as well. I joke, he's nothing to do with the podcast. Thanks very much to
What's that? Right.
Dan, we missed something off the agenda.
He says, can you thank the Barber Club?
Oh, right. I'll do that then.
Right.
Thanks very much to the Barber Club and the Lower Level in Luton for hosting our new studio. Thanks to Sean Grant and the Wolfgang for our intro music, and to Ed Smith Creative for all the designs that you see on set. From myself and James, until next time, which will be a preview of what we hope will be Town's first 3 points of the season at Preston. Come on, you Hatters.
For me, it's the people and the spirit of the people as well.
I love this town. I love this town. I love this town. You know what I love about this town is actually you. Everyone in it has got this massive soul.
We're Luton people, and that's what we care about.